Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph, 12 lines from the top. Boy Rav. And the following shaila legabe the avoid of chafina. Chaf and chavera v'nosan l'sei chafna of mao. If the kohen gadol, he did the chafina, so he scooped up the ketairas, then he poured it into another kohen gadol's hands. What's halacha? So he did, one kohen gadol did it, and then he poured it into the hands of another kohen gadol. What is the din? What is halacha? Malay chafna b'inan. Do we say that malav chaf, the ketairas has to be in the hands, in the full hands of the kohen gadol, and therefore v'ha'ika, even though this is a different kohen gadol, but it doesn't matter. It's in the hands of a kohen gadol, so it doesn't matter that he didn't do the chafina himself. It was done by a kohen gadol. It's now in the hands of a kohen gadol, so therefore it should be acceptable. Oy dilma, perhaps we'll say v'lokach v'hevi be'inan. It's v'lokach v'hevi, the one that does the lekicha, the one that he scoops it up. He has to v'hevi, he has to bring it in v'haleka, and you don't have that teku. The pasuk says, "V'lokach malay hamach tagach leish malam mizbeach mifnei Hashem umalay chafnav ketara sam daka v'hevi mi beis laparayches." So the pasuk says that the v'lokach malay hamach tagach leish umalay chafnav ketara samim daka, and it says v'hevi. So the question is it the same one that is v'lokach? Does he have to be v'hevi? Is he the same one that has to bring it in, or can it be a different one as well? Tosfos asks a question that l'chayra, we had this question before, that we had, Rav Papa had the shaila before, that if the ketairas gets trapped between the fingers of the kohen gadol, is that kosher for the does it have a din of malay chafna for the ketairas? Is it v'lokach v'hevi? Is it v'lokach v'hevi? And over there, what's trapped in his fingers is not something that he took. It's not what he didn't do intentionally. He did lokach. Or do we say v'hevi, even if it's not what he v'lokach? Do we connect them together, v'lokach v'hevi, or not? So, Tosfos, what's the additional question that he's asking over here? This is the question that was asked before, was asked originally. So what is being added over here? Tosfos says no. It's a different shaila over here. Over there, the issue was that there was no lakicha because it was not done intentionally. It got trapped between his fingers, and so that's not considered to be a lokach. He didn't do it. Perhaps that's not considered to be v'lokach v'hevi. What he brings in is not what he intended to take, because he did not intend to take that which was trapped within his fingers. Over here is a different shaila. Over here, there is a lakicha. There is a full lakicha, and there is a full hava. But it's not done by the same kohen. It's not done by the same kohen gadol. So it's a different shaila. It's not a shaila of that v'lokach, and that it constitutes the lokach over there, what he brings in. There certainly was a lakicha, but the shaila over here is it the same kohen that has to do v'lokach v'hevi? When it says v'lokach, and then it says v'hevi, is it the same v'hevi as the one who did v'lokach? Is it the same, the v'hevi, is it going back on the same kind of the v'lokach, or can it be even a different one? So let's take who. Boy, Rav Yishu ben Levi had the following shaila: Chafan umeiz. Chafan, if the kohen gadol did the chafina, he scooped up the ketairas with his hand, and then he died. Ma'u sheikanas acher b'chafinasa. Can the replacement, can the second kohen gadol, can he go in with that ketairas which was done by the first kohen gadol? Can he go in with that ketairas? Then can he use that? Or does he have to do the chafina from the beginning? He has to do the chafina himself. The Tosfos Rishonim elucidates the question as follows. It says, one side to say is the same child would be not only if the kohen gadol, first kohen gadol died, but if he would be tomei. He was tomei, and then can the second one go in with the chafina of the first one? Or alternatively, he says that no, that could be if the first one is alive and you had a chafina of a kohen gadol. So this chafina it's a chafina of a kohen gadol who is alive and could do the avodah. Then you'd say that the chafina, the second one, could go in, use this chafina of the first kohen gadol. But if the first kohen gadol died, he's no longer here. You don't have, therefore, the chafina of a kohen gadol. The chafina was done by the kohen gadol who died. He's no longer here, so therefore you don't have a chafina of a kohen gadol. So perhaps then the second one cannot go in with that chafina. Meaning, even if you say that a second kohen gadol could go in, use the chafina of the first one, but perhaps that's only if the first one is alive and he's ready to do the avodah. Then the second one could go use that chafina because you have the chafina of a kohen gadol. But if he's no longer alive, then you can't because you don't have a chafina of a kohen gadol. So that's the shaila. That's the shaila. Amar Rabbi Chanina said, Boirei Sheilas Harishayim. He said, come and see that this is the shaila of the Friediker. Come and see that this shaila is a shaila of the Friediker. Meaning, Rav Chanina had the same shaila, and he said, look, our shaila is the same shaila as the earlier ones had. The earlier ones had the same shaila. So, frankly, Gemara, remember that Rabbi Shua ben Levi Kashish, you mean to say that Rabbi Shua ben Levi was older than Rav Chanina? V'amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi li hitit Rabbi Chanina lishtais shchalayim b'Shabbos. He said that Rabbi Chanina permitted me to drink the juice of shchalayim, cress, on Shabbos. That even though it has medicinal benefits, but he allowed me to use this, to drink the juice of it. So, frankly, more, what's the shayla? Ishtas pshita. What do you mean? That's a double pashut that it's mutter. It's a drink. And even if it has medicinal benefits, but it's something that people drink. It's ma'achal brim. D'snan kol ha'ochlam oichlam l'refua. Any food that person normally eats, even though it heals, you can use it, you can eat it on Shabbos. And any drinks, any beverages, even if they have medicinal benefits, but if they're drinks or beverages that people drink, you drink it on Shabbos. So that's not a shaila. So what was the shaila? Ella lishchayk v'lishtay shchalayim b'Shabbos. So he meant to say is that mutter to grind it up and to drink it on Shabbos. As far as the heter of drinking it, and as far as the heter for a refuah, that it's also midrabanan to take medicine on Shabbos. Well, since it's a food or a beverage that people drink, then it would be mutter. That's not a shaila. The shaila is, can you grind it up? Now, grinding shchika is a malacha. Can you grind it up for this purpose on Shabbos? So, frankly, what's the situation? What's the circumstance? If the person is in a sakonas nefashos, if the patient is in a sakona mishra, then it's deicha Shabbos. Because nefashos deicha Shabbos. So, what's the shaila? And if there's no sakanta meser also, then it's certainly also. If it's not a sakonas nefashos, how can you do be over a iser deraisa? More answers lo'ilam because zakon to really I'll tell you was zakon. So what's the shaila? V'hachi kami boile. This is the shaila mi masya. It's as far as the medicinal aspect of it, not the halacha. Meaning, is it something that really heals the nechol shabsa? Is it something that really heals that would allow us therefore to be mechal Shabbos? If it's something that is really a genuine medicine, it heals, then it'll be mutter. If not, not. Question is it a genuine medicine? Does it really heal the patient? So mi masin nechol Shabbat, oy loy masin v'loy nechol Shabbat. That was the shaila. Umayshna Rabbi Chanina, and why Rishu ben Levi asked after Rabbi Chanina, Yishum the baki b'refuasu, because he was an expert in refuas. And therefore, he was the authority, the one to ask. He said, nobody asked me about the makkah of a preda levana, of a makkah, that a white mule that it kicked a person, and he had a makkah from him, and that he lived from that. That's considered to be very great sakana, and he never had an incident, never had a case like that where the person survived. But we do see people survive from a makkah of a preda levana. Ema, the Gemara says, Ema v'chayas doesn't mean the person, it means v'chayas, that the wound healed completely. As Rashi and Chulin explains, chaya would be referring to the person. Chayas is a makkah, Lashon Nekeva, referring to the wound, that the wound never healed completely. We see that it does heal. More answers, we're talking only a specific case where the mules are red, but the feet have white tips. The feet of it has, the hoofs have white tips. We're talking specifically in such a case. But, so what do we see? Now, what do we see from here? We see that Rav Chanina was an authority. He was an authority on medicine, and that's why he was asked about this shiloh. But nevertheless, since he was asked, as Rashi explains, and not the fact that he was asked the question, because he was an authority on medicine, even an older person would ask a younger person who was an authority on what the medicinal benefits are. But Rashi explains, since he called him Rebbe, therefore it shows that Rabbi Chanina was the older one, not Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rather, we must reinterpret it to mean as follows. What he meant to say was, Rabbi Chanina said, and this is what he said, that's their Shiloh, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who was the younger, their Shiloh is the same as the earlier ones. We are the older ones. We see that the younger ones are asking the same Shiloh as the earlier ones. So that was the Shiloh that they had. The Shiloh that they had, if the Kohen Gadol did the Chafina, he died, can the second Kohen Gadol go in with that Chafina? Frankly, Gemara, Omi Ama Rabbi Chanina Hachi, did Rabbi Chanina have the Shiloh? Could he really have the Shiloh? Rabbi Chanina said, and before it says that the Kohen Gadol goes in with the par, that, and we darshan v'par v'loy b'dome shel par. He goes in with the par, meaning, but only if he shechted the par, and then he was makabel the dam, then he goes in taking the blood to the Kodesh Kodashim. But there has to be that there is a par there, v'loy b'dome shel par, but not only with the blood. So that teaches you that if a Kohen Gadol, the first Kohen Gadol, he shechted the par. He did the Kabbalah Saddam, he died, now we have a second Kohen Gadol. The second Kohen Gadol cannot use that blood to do the Avodah in the Heichal. He can't use, because for him it's only Damashal par. It's not the par. He didn't shech the par. So therefore, he has to now bring another par, and he has to do the shchita of that par and the Kabbalah, and bring in the par himself from the par that he shechted. Rabbi Chanina, and Rabbi Chanina further said that that he said the order is makif. Now, the way the Torah says the order is, it's first the shchitas apar, after shchitas apar is the chafina. So the chafina has to come after shchitas apar. So therefore, you do not have this scenario. According to Rabbi Chanina, you don't have this scenario, because if the first Kohen Gadol did the chafina, well, the chafina has to come after the shchita. That means that the first Kohen Gadol did the shchita. Now, the second Kohen Gadol cannot go in with that blood from the first Kohen Gadol. He did not. That was only the damashal par, but not the par. Therefore, he has to begin again. Therefore, he has to start again. He has to start the shchita, and there has to be a chafina after the second shchita. So you don't have this scenario according to Rabbi Chanina. Because according to Rabbi Chanina, the first Kohen Gadol did the shchita of the par, the chafina has to come afterwards. He did the chafina after that. Well, if he died, the second Kohen Gadol has to start from the beginning. He can't use that dam of the par, and therefore he can't use the ketairis either. So he has to start right from the beginning. So you don't have this scenario according to Rabbi Chanina. More answers, Hachi Kamar, what means to say is, Midikama Boile, Ha, Yeshua had the Shaila, some Michlal, the Kasamra Par, Vafil Vidamashal Par. Well, in order to have this Shaila, it must be that he holds that bepar vafil bedomishal par, that you don't have to start from the beginning. If the first Kohen Gadol did the shchita, they did the kabbalah sadam, he did the chafina, he died, the second Kohen Gadol doesn't have to start from the beginning. He holds you can use that blood that was accepted, that they were makabel in the kais, and therefore the question is, can he use the ketairas of the first Kohen Gadol as well? So he held that bepar of film bedamashal par. Therefore, Lamai the Sphira lay, now according to his shita, what he holds, not what I hold, Rabbi Chanina says, according to what he holds, Lamai the Sphira lay, Sheilos Geshelas Harishayim. His shaila is like some of my chaverim who had a similar shaila. Not that Rabbi Chanina himself had that shaila, but his chaverim had that shaila. Al Kampanim, that is the shaila. Now, of course, as we say, it's predicated on holding bepar vafil bedomishal par. Not if you hold bepar v'loy bedomishal par, but that is the shaila. So, my havala, what's the maskana? Can the second Kohen Gadol go with the ketairas that the chafina was done by the first one? Amar Papi said, if the Kohen Gadol, he does the chafina. Now, as we said, he puts it into the cup. He puts the ketairas into the ladle. Now, he comes into the Kodesh Kadoshim. So there is a shaila of when he comes into the Kodesh Kadoshim, does he pour the ketairas from the cup, from the ladle, onto the coals and burn it? Or does he pour it into his hands, and then from his hands pour it onto the coals, onto the machta? So, therefore, if the Kohen Gadol, when he comes in, he has to do the chafina again a second time, then chafer and neftos b'chafinasa. Then the second Kohen Gadol could use that ketairas. Why? Chafina, because he's going to have to do a chafina himself again inside the Kodesh Kadoshim. He's going to do his own chafina. So you have that he's doing the chafina and v'lokach v'hevi. But he ain't chayfen. But if there's no second chafina, so therefore the whole chafina is only based on the first Kohen Gadol, you have a shaila. That's what he wanted to say. Omrli Rav Huna Breda Rav Shula Rav Papi says, no, Adarab, just the opposite. If he does a second chafina, then no, opposite. So the second Kohen Gadol cannot use that ketairas. Why is that? Because they have different hand sizes. Then if he has to do another chafina inside, the amount of the ketairas is not going to be the same amount that fills his hands. It filled the first Kohen Gadol's hands. It's not going to fill exactly his hands in the same way. So that certainly would not be acceptable. But if there is no second chafina, you're just using the first chafina, so you don't have this issue, then tiboilach. Then you have a shayla. The boilo, because as we'll see, we'll have a shayla chayfen v'chayzer v'chayfen aloi. So, therefore, he held the shaila is only if you hold that you do not have to do a second chafina. If you do not have to do a second chafina, you don't have the issue about the size of the hands of the Kohen Gadol, then you have a shaila. So the Gemara will attempt to resolve this shaila.